and welcome to the Atlanta Divorce Law Group's Facebook Live page. I could not be more excited to share with you today my own personal coach and mindset and success coach, David Neagle. It feels actually very intimate to share somebody that has had such a personal impact in my life with all of you. And it's kind of scary and very exciting all at the same time because David has been such a big part of my own journey. David is the best-selling author of the book, The Millions Within, which I have right here. And it's actually, this is my personal signed copy that I'm very excited about. And he has been in the coaching industry for over 20 years, coaching entrepreneurs, entertainers, other coaches and consultants all over the world. If you're ever fortunate enough to go to David Neagle's seminar, you actually will run into people from all over the world that have traveled to come and watch him and learn from him. David has also worked with some of the biggest coaches in the industry, Anthony Robbins and Bob Proctor, just to name a few. And personally, I first met David when my husband Hisham and I went to a seminar that he had in Atlanta in March of 2016. And we went and just with an open mind and very excited because we had heard so much buzz for such a long time about all the lessons that David had taught and just all the breakthroughs he had led people to have. And we had some personal friends that we had watched and seen the amazing results they've had with working with David. And once we really got started working with him right off the gate, we started having some amazing personal breakthroughs on who we are as people, who we are as a couple, how little we're doing to really own our true selves and our true gift, and to really step out and own our gift and our power, and how much more we could do for the people around us and for ourselves and in our relationship and for our family. And once we're able to take ownership of that, we were able to experience life on a whole nother level and experience our relationship and our family on a whole nother level. So I'm eternally grateful for David for everything he has led me to become and helped me to own, and my husband as well. And through the process of working and coaching with David, he really taught me how to let go of who you are taught to be versus who you really are in your heart, the true gift and the true powers that you have. And once you do that, you show up so much more authentic and so much more real in a way that your family can experience you in a very fulfilling way. And you can really take ownership of your purpose and your mission and your value. And in that spirit, the concept of happily ever after divorce came to my mind, and it really came from the coaching I did with David. And it's all about letting go of the stigma of divorce so people can make real decisions about what they want for themselves and for their marriage and really out of their lives. So David, with complete gratitude that I'm thanking you for coming here today and sharing your knowledge with all of our audience and really leading me to this point where I can sit here with you. So thank you so much. Could you, in your own brilliant words, explain why do so many people stay stuck or trapped in an unhappy relationship or marriage or situations? Sometimes it's even just a situation when they know they're making themselves miserable, they're making their spouse or their partner miserable, and they're making their children miserable, but they will stay there, some of them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, Sarah. It's been a real pleasure to work with you and Hisham. And your question is such a really fantastic question, because you would think on a logical level that if a person was unhappy in their life, whether it be a marriage or whatever it would be, that they would actually do something to change it. And when I first started down this journey, that was a huge wake-up call for me to find out how many people are unhappy in situations, yet they don't do anything about it. So it became a relentless journey for me to find out why. Why, as part of what I do, why is it that so many people don't actually change? And one of the things about marriage, I think, that is fascinating is that it's literally become part of our value system as people. So you actually see in society, if you run across somebody who's 30, 40, 50 years old and they're not married, a lot of people in society look at them like, what's wrong with them? There must be something wrong with you if you're not married or if you're not in an intimate relationship. And you have to ask yourself, like, where does that question come from? So if we go all the way back to when we're born, when we're little babies, this is where this whole idea begins that number one, we need another person in our life to survive and for us to be whole or complete, which is what you hear a lot of people say when they're looking for a partner. I'm looking for somebody to complete me or make me whole, or I don't feel whole without that person. We're literally programmed from little children that somebody else is going to complete who we are as a spiritual being, a psychological being, an emotional being, instead of really owning ourselves. So here's how this happens. A little baby, as we know, absolutely needs the mother or mom and dad in order to survive. So Dr. Schindler wrote a book, How to Live 365 Days a Year, way back in the 50s. And he outlined 6 human needs. And I became really fascinated with the first 3, which are basically love, security, and self-esteem. As a small child, security is the most important thing that we need, or we die, right? We cannot live without that security. So the way that the child internally knows that it's secure is through what we would call love, or what we would call connection with the mother and the father. If that connection is healthy, the child feels secure within, and you begin to raise a secure child. But if the parents aren't healthy and they're not really giving a healthy connection or love, what they're really doing is they're manipulating a child to be the way that they want that child to be in their life, so that they're not experiencing triggers of their own pain, they're not experiencing embarrassment, they're not experiencing their own shame coming up inside of them because the child is not being exactly the way that they think the child needs to be for the world to see, so they feel their own shame. So this gets projected onto this little child, and the child is not actually experiencing unconditional love. The child is experiencing, I get love when I meet these conditions. When I adopt my personality or my way of being so that my parents are loving to me, they're caring to me, they interact with me, they connect with me, and then I feel secure on the inside. But what this child is not doing is learning who he or she really is in life.
Yeah.
The whole idea of helping a child finding out what their unique gifts and talents are, and then helping a child embrace those, own those, become confident in them, and bring them out into the world in a way where it benefits them and others is not what's taking place. What's actually taking place is, what is this false persona that I need to create in my life in order that I can survive in the world? And it starts with school, right? And who do I need to be to make the teachers happy? Who do I need to be in order to fit into a peer group? Who do I need to be in order to be able to get good grades and work my way through the school system? Then it goes into our work environment. Who do I need to be in order to be on the side of the boss where I can keep my job, I can get promotions, I can get raises, I will be secure all the way to retirement. And the whole idea of making mistakes really becomes a major issue. We start learning from a very early age that mistakes are not okay. And we're shamed for it, we're guilted for it, we're made wrong, we get attacked as a person for making mistakes, when mistakes is actually how we learn as people. So what does all this have to do with why people stay in marriages or relationships that they shouldn't stay in? Well, if we believe that making a mistake is shameful, that it's embarrassing, that it reflects that there's something wrong with us, by the time we wake up to the idea that we're in a relationship that we shouldn't be in, we start going into this self-loathing, self-condemnation state of mind. And we say to ourselves, how did I get myself into this situation? So it starts to become all about the idea of, regretting past decisions, not accepting that maybe you made a mistake, not accepting maybe that just the relationship may have just run its course and it's not a lifetime relationship, but it's a relationship for a season. And, and really accepting self-love and saying, I want to end this relationship in love and move on to the next phase of my life in love with me first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have learned that when we make a mistake, that something is wrong with us. That's what shame basically says. Shame says that there's something wrong with me, and guilt says there's something wrong with what I've done. Mm-hmm. So underlying all of that is the idea that if somebody else accepts me, that makes me okay at some level, right? So if I have the love, the appreciation, the acceptance of another human being, then that makes the insecure part of me not feel so insecure, and I start to feel okay with myself. But if I'm now going to separate myself from this person, there must be we internalize it as there must be something wrong. And this is what little children do, by the way, when they experience divorce. They always make it about them. It becomes a very self-centered issue. What is it that I'm doing wrong that mom and dad are splitting or leaving? And I'm sure that you see that all the time in the work that you do, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when a parent is going through their own stuff, they don't understand what the child's going through, so they can't guide the child out of it in a healthy way that supports their self-esteem. So you have the love, you have the security. Now, what is this doing? It's either building a healthy self-esteem, or it's building one that's not healthy. And for most of the people out there, they really don't, at their core level, they really don't have a healthy self-image of themselves. It's based on what other people think of them. When you get divorced, that's a very public thing, right? Yeah. People see that you're not with that person anymore. People judge based on their own interpretation of what marriage is, what relationships are, who did something wrong. They create their own story about it. That gets projected onto other individuals. And today, I mean, everything's public with social media and the way that the news is. Everybody creates their own narrative around what something is that they're experiencing that may or may not even be true. So a person is really facing a backlash of, am I going to be accepted or am I not going to be accepted for this decision that I make? Now that creates so much pain in a person's life that when a person thinks about leaving, it would literally cause them to say, you know what, I would rather stay miserable in this relationship than have to go through that, right? Plus then you have that's not even touching on all the legal ramifications that go on with divorce, where you're losing half of what you earn together, and there's a division of assets, and there's a dealing with the children, starting your life over, repairing emotional wounds, this type of thing. So very often when a person begins to wake up to this, one of the issues is that they've created an entire lifestyle based on the relationship. They've created a mountain of responsibility based on the relationship and how their life is moving forward. And now they're talking about reversing it and completely starting over. And it's terrifying for people to have to experience that. And the other thing is that because shame is behind all of this, it is rare that a person comes out and says, you know something, I'm scared and I'm hurting and I need help, and literally asking someone for help, because we were taught that it's weak to ask other people for help. It's weak to admit that you're hurting. In those scenarios, the natural tendency for people then is to go into blame, right? So when we're hurting, instead of dealing with our own injury, we go into blame. When we go into blame, we get all the other people around us that are also hurting, wanting to blame. So we have a whole group of individuals that is blaming someone else. and nobody's actually healing. And we see this, right? We see it all the time.
In divorce, it's huge. It's
yeah.
why they fight so hard over things that really doesn't mean much in the long term.
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is. So then a person, if you're not in a place where you're getting a divorce, but you're observing this over and over again as you go through your life, to even consider divorce is something that is like, I don't want to have to go through that, right? So we will stay and try to find a way to justify staying in the relationship. We're quietly suffering. We're not being the person that we really want to be. The growth obviously stops, because once you're in a relationship that's not growing, or the love has gone out of the relationship, then growth stops. You're not growing and your partner is not growing. So it becomes a real stigma, around the whole thing. And people choose to just stay in that, very often to the point where either they get to the place where they can't take it anymore, and then it really blows up into something that is very nasty, which again, media, portrays that with celebrities all the time.
Right.
And it's not something that we want to have to experience. So I think that the idea really is that we go back and understand the biggest part of the problem is that we're carrying seeds of shame and guilt all of our life. And until we clear those out of our energetic field, until we resolve them psychologically and emotionally, and begin to own ourselves outside of another person, that we're always going to experience this when it comes to any kind of a parting of a relationship in any way. It's one of the things that makes it so darn painful that we actually think that there's something wrong with us. So it's pretty devastating. And if you look at the statistics around divorce, you think to yourself, why would somebody even want to consider marriage with the statistics so high around the failure of marriage? Right. And the failure of marriage comes down, in my mind, it really comes down to two things. Number one, what was the real reason that you got together to begin with? Was it out of love, or was it out of some kind of security? And because psychology has really proven that most people go out there and marry some version of their parental figures, so to speak, it's coming out of security, because we understand the patterns of our parents. And because we understand the patterns of our parents, we understand how to interact with somebody who resembles those patterns. So the first thing is that we have to begin to understand our own patterns that we carried out from our childhood because of our parents, whether we just freely adopted them or adopted them out of rebellion, and begin to really begin to kind of unwind and unpack all that stuff for ourselves emotionally. Then we can go out and move into a relationship and really have a healthy relationship with somebody else, provided that they've done the same thing in their life. And if they've done that, then two people can come together in the spirit of love, being in love, and have open and honest communication where they're not worried about shame and guilt and what happens if something goes wrong. That fear that somebody will leave really hangs over the heads of a lot of people in life. And it is, to go through life like that way is no way to live. It's like being in slavery. It's just not a healthy thing.
Talk a little bit about at your seminars, how when you're about to break through and own who you really are, there's always this fear of who's going to leave you behind, or who are you going to leave behind in that process. And I've seen this happen at your seminars very frequently, when somebody's up at the mic and they're very emotional and they're having a breakthrough, and you're trying to help them, challenge them to find their true self and step out of that role and their pattern. One of the questions you always ask is, who are you afraid of? Who are you afraid is going to leave you? Is going to leave you if you own who you really are? Or who are you afraid you're going to leave behind if you really own who you are? If you don't mind just talking a little bit about that and how that plays into this, and why we keep staying in these roles to keep the marriage alive.
Well, it's one of the factors that a person has to really look at when they take on the value system of personal growth. Personal growth means that the number one thing that is important to me in my lifetime is to grow into the person that I was meant to be and to fulfill my purpose in this lifetime. And I can't do that without growth. So it's not something that I have to do. It's something that I want to do, right? It's part of my journey. So often you'll hear me say, the most important thing that a person has to look at when they leave one of my events or anybody else's is how are they going to change their environment when they go home to match the new person that they're becoming in their own growth. Because every environment is set up out of who you were before you started the growth. And an environment is people, places, and things, right? That's what our environment is. So if we're accepting full responsibility for ourselves, Sarah, we have to accept the idea that the people that we are surrounding ourselves with in our life are being brought in, and we're tolerating those individuals based on how they fit our needs as human beings.
Right.
How do they fit some need for us in our life? And it's either a healthy need and they support where you are going in life, or it's an unhealthy need and they support security in life, which means the second you start to change, they're going to feel very uncomfortable in their life. My mentor said to me one time, when you change, you force everybody around you to adapt to that change, and that makes them very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take on the value system of, I want to become the very best person that I can be, and you're surrounded with some people in your life that do not have that value system, they're going to do everything that they can unconsciously to keep you from growing, because they don't want to have to face what scares them, even though you're doing it from a place of total responsibility and full acceptance of, I need to work on me to become a better person. I need to work on me to provide value to this world that I'm in, to be an asset to the world and not be something or a person that is taking away from the world, right? So you definitely get to the point where all of a sudden it becomes real that you may have to change relationships in your life. You may have to face the fact that some people have come into your life with an unwritten agreement that you play a very specific role, and if you don't play that role, we're casting you out.
Yeah.
It's no different than when we were in high school. I mean, remember how brutal high school was?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the peer groups, that's how peer groups were formed. If you fit into the peer group, you're good. If you do something outside of what this peer group stands for, you're going to get kicked out of the peer group, right?
Yeah.
And we see that today in all different areas of the world. So what happens is we adjust ourselves to fit in. But when we're looking for who am I really, then it means standing alone, standing for something in your life that means something to you, regardless of what other people think. And I think inherently we know that some people will not tolerate that in their life. They're not going to accept the change, and there's a very good chance they may walk away because they're triggered by you becoming a better person. So that scares us, because if we go back to when we were little kids, we needed that connection for survival.
Yeah.
And if we've never matured to the level of understanding that we don't need that connection for survival, then every time a relationship threatens to end, it is going to scare the hell out of us. It is going to make us feel insecure. It's going to make us feel like there's something wrong with us. And the truth of the matter is, if you're a person who's continually on the path of growth, relationships are going to change in your life frequently. Some people will be there all of your life because they have the same value system and you can contribute to each other. Some people will hit an area in their life where something happened that they have to deal with that's just so painful that they're not ready to deal with it yet. And the fact that you're dealing with it threatens them. So they have to make you wrong, and then they choose to leave or end the relationship. So this is one of the things that we do talk about in the events, and how to deal with that, and how to come from a place where You don't need another person's love, and you don't need another person's approval. You need to approve of yourself and love yourself first and foremost, so that you can be the best person in your life. And I will tell you this, the other side of this is that there is no other freedom like the freedom of not needing someone and having to change who you really are just so that they'll stay in your life.
Oh, that's absolutely. And it's so beautifully said. And I remember the first time I heard you kind of explain the concept of how biologically, from evolution standpoint, we're wired to hold on to the connection of our parents, specifically our mother, for survival. Because as infants, if we don't have that connection with the mother, she abandons us. Most likely, chances are you're going to die, especially if you look in the animal kingdom. But then we grow up to adults and we're still looking to play that role to get that connection, because biologically, somehow that's still tied to survival. And the fear of abandonment is so big because biologically or subconsciously it means death. And
yeah, it absolutely does. It's like, when we're born, one of the first things that happens is the umbilical cord is cut between us and our mom. And we walk around with our end of it in our hand, looking for somebody else to plug it into for the rest of our life. I mean, it's really the truth. From an energetic level, from a security level, from an emotional level, we need somebody else to approve of us in order to say that we're okay. Yeah. And one of the very first steps in self-growth is that you accept responsibility for everything that you think, everything that you feel, and every result that you get in your life. When you can do that, you become an empowered person. And then you can move on to all the other areas of growth in your life, which you can, then you're virtually unstoppable, because you're not really downplaying yourself so that other people don't feel uncomfortable. You can show up in the world big, bright, beautiful, loving, full of gratitude, looking to make a difference, and you will attract other people of like mind to you, which is absolutely fantastic. The friends that I have today in my life, and I include you in that also, it's absolutely amazing the things that we're doing together and supporting each other in, versus the friends that I had, say, 30 years ago in my life that did nothing but complain about how terrible life was, and they weren't going anywhere. So, and we all hold each other accountable, and we all come from the place of accepting personal responsibility for what you create in your life. One of the things that we say, that you say, is if something's not going the way that you want it, why are we choosing to have that experience?
Right.
Because it's an area that's the next area that's showing up for us to grow, right? So the great thing is that once you get beyond the insecurity of it, it actually starts to become exciting. Yeah. Because your life just keeps getting better and better and better. And you think to yourself, it can't get any better. And yet it keeps getting better.
I remember when first year I was working with you in 2016, every time I was getting really scared, I would also get really excited, because I'm like, something great's about to happen. That's why I'm getting scared. That's why I'm feeling pain. And you really taught me to welcome pain and welcome even being nervous about something, because it was letting me know I'm in the right direction. I'm heading towards growth. So thank you so much for all the work, you put up with us, and all the work you continue to do for everybody. And I'm so excited that you're coming back to Atlanta in June 20th through 22nd for this, I believe it's called the Success Summit. The Art of Success Summit. You're coming to Atlanta June 20th to 22nd for Art of Success Summit. I will be there and taking notes, and I'm pretty sure you guys are already sold out, but I do want you to kind of tell people a little bit about it. Maybe not everybody will always have a chance to work with you on a one-on-one level, but this is a great opportunity you've created for a bigger event for a lot of people to come and see you live here in Atlanta. So if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, the event actually sold out twice, and we had to make new arrangements to give a bigger space so we could put more people in it. So we are able to take a few more people. But the Art of Success Summit comes from this basis of the idea that I had many years ago, that we're creative beings, and we should live our life like an art, right? We're constantly creating the inner expression, the desire that we have to be, do, and have and experience things in our life, and to experience the beauty and the opulence of life. But internal changes have to happen before that can happen. So the truth of the matter is that we're actually born that way. We're born creative beings. We're born to be successful. We are born to create beauty and beautiful experiences and help our fellow human beings in that process. In other words, to be an asset in this world. And it's taught out of us as we grow up. We're taught a whole lot of junk that is simply not true, that makes life difficult. It makes us suffer. It keeps us from being happy in life. It keeps us on all kinds of medications to try to make us happy in life. And the event itself, the Art of Success, is really about showing a person how to tap into that and change the paradigm that is keeping them in a place of suffering where success is difficult, relationships are difficult, building a business is difficult, earning money is difficult. Actually, earning money is one of the easiest things that you can do once you change your awareness around it. So this is about showing a person who they really are and how to access all these different parts of them that allows them to be the fantastic, wonderful person that they really are and live life to the fullest. And it's not just about changing what you're thinking. That's a big part of it, but you have to change what you're doing. However, you cannot change what you're doing until you change how you're thinking about what you're doing. So it starts there with how do we change how we're thinking about what we're doing so that we can then take practical application and make it something extraordinary in our life where we're really getting the results that we want.
So would you say anybody that is hungry for more or feeling stuck would be somebody that should come?
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter what level you're stuck at. We have people that don't have a lot of money, and we have people that are multimillionaires that come to this. And it works for everybody because it's based in truth. It's not based on the person's level. It's not based on their paradigm. So the idea is that you step into what we know is true, and we don't get stuck in the challenges that you have in your life, but we show you how to step out of them into the freedom that we offer everybody in really accepting that responsibility for themselves.
And we're going to add the link to this Facebook Live to the Art of Success Summit that everybody can go and learn more and get their tickets if they want to, but they're selling out pretty fast. So they've already sold out twice. Last time I spoke to Stephanie from your team, you guys aren't moving to a bigger event, so people have to hurry up and get their tickets. Now, there's another thing happening around you that I'm also really excited about. One of the big game changers for me was nonstop listening to your business school podcast on iTunes. And now you have a brand new one that's out, and it's called The Successful Mind. And that's on iTunes, and we'll also provide the link to that. Can you tell us a little bit about that, David?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Successful Mind podcast is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And it is a combination and becoming a combination of bringing in truth and success principles, right, that help a person shift the way that they think. But we're also going to be bringing in other people that have achieved extraordinary success in their life and learn how they've also changed the way that they think. So it starts off right now. What's loaded into it is some mindset stuff, some really good mindset stuff to lay the foundation for a person as how are we thinking about this and where are we going? And then we're going to be bringing in other people as well that I'm going to be interviewing and creating a dialogue with so that we can learn not just from me, but from all kinds of people around the world that are creating extraordinary, successful lives.
And that's awesome. And guys, there's also, don't forget the book, The Millions Within. You can also download it on Audible. I listen to that book twice a year because every time I listen to that or your podcast, David, I'm a different person and I hear it from a different side of myself. So it's something that I consistently have to go back to. And that's how the coaching with you has been as well. I mean, this conversation right now, we've probably just gone a few inches into what really is at store when you come to a live event, which it feels like you've been sliced like an onion in half, and we're not even peeling layers off sometimes. Sometimes we're going straight to the core, and it's scary, but it's so liberating, and it's so wonderful to be on the other side and then start owning your gift and then being able to give and do more for other people. And you've been such an example of that and such a huge part in mine and Hisham's life. And I really appreciate you letting us share this time with you and share you with our audience. So thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you guys so much for watching. David, any last words?
What I would say is ask yourself, what do you really want in your life? And what opportunity do you need to embrace that's in front of you right now that is going to be the first step in actually getting there? And then don't say no. Life is all about saying yes. What most people don't realize is that when you say yes to the right things, you don't need to say no to anything. And you move right to where it is that you want to go. And you can do it really quick.
I have nothing to add to that. That's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you again next week, and catch all the links we're going to put up in a little bit. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.